This is Corolla Digital.
This is We the People. What is wrong with our country? I don't want to believe what you believe, and you can't make me. I want to hear why it's bad to feel good. These two political gangs don't have your best interest in mind. Makes me proud to be an American. Makes me even smarter to be off the grid. Stay vigilant, people. Abraham, light up that joint. Welcome, my vigilant listeners, to We the People podcast. I'm your host, Jesse Ventura. Today's a big show. We've got Alex Jones online. The radio host of InfoWars is going to join me in a later part of the hour, and we're talking on the latest news on Ebola, ISIS, and big media hysteria. But first, let's get right to it. My vigilant producer, Alex Logan, has some stories for us. Alex, what's happening on the grid?
All right, well, first up, Governor, the Daily Beast reports that there is a growing frustration within the U.S. Air Force that the air campaign against ISIS in Syria and Iraq is moving far more slowly than expected. The single biggest problem, some airmen say, is the so-called kill chain of properly identifying and making sure the right target is being attacked. The article points out that the reason for this is that there is a lack of ground forces to direct air power against ISIS positions. Air power works best when there are troops on the ground who can call in the strikes. Does this justify sending troops on the ground, Governor?
Absolutely. Don't you agree, Alex?
No, I don't.
No.
'Cause I know you're being sarcastic.
Come on. I mean, let's get with the program here, people. It's inevitable. We're going to war there. So these are just excuses that they fire out, that this, the Daily Beast puts this out there so that all the people of America will say, well, we want properly directed airstrikes. Let's get some boots on the ground over there. I mean, if you're going to fight the war, you should fight it the proper way, shouldn't you?
That seems to make sense. Yeah, it makes sense to me.
So if they're going to go to war with ISIS, then they better frickin' go to war. Why dilly-dally around with it? Let's go to war again. You know, if that's the ultimate goal and the ultimate thing is to achieve success, I'm a great believer that in order to achieve success, you need all guns blazing. And if we're going to go to war there, then why dilly-dally around with it? Let's go to war. It's what we do best. It's what we're known for throughout the world. The United States is the war power. Well, let's go over there and show them what we can do. We're gonna anyway. Does anybody in the command center believe we're not going to go to war against ISIS? Is there anybody naive enough to think? All they're doing is putting out enough propaganda, and they're at the point now where over half the country thinks we should. So politically, they're winning. They're scare tactics. People are afraid that ISIS has them in the crosshairs, that they could be the next person dying from an ISIS terrorist. And so we need to go to war. And didn't George Bush tell us better over there than here? So let's latch on to all those old programs that took us to Iraq in the first place. It was wrong to go in the first place. It's wrong to go now. But two negatives equal a positive, doesn't it, Alex?
Yeah, we're all in agreement over here, Gov.
There you go. So let's get our asses in there, get the troops on the ground, and let's have a good goddamn war.
Well, speaking of money and armed services, the U.S. Air Force may be in trouble. A government watchdog agency is asking the Air Force to explain why it decided to destroy 16 aircraft initially bought for the Afghan Air Force and turn them into $32,000 of scrap metal instead of finding other ways to salvage nearly $500 million in U.S. funds spent on the program. I'm concerned that the officials responsible for planning and executing the scrapping of the planes may not have considered other possible alternatives in order to salvage taxpayer dollars, said John Sopko, the Special Inspector General for Afghanistan Reconstruction. I was informed that an Afghan construction company paid approximately 6 cents a pound for the scrapped planes, which came to a total of $32,000. So another waste of our tax dollars, Governor, huh?
Hey, when you're going to war, you're going to suffer not only personal loss, you're going to suffer financial loss. And isn't this just kind of part of the deal? You know, what about all the money that disappeared in Iraq? There was millions and billions they can't locate over there. People need to understand something. When you go to war, it's rape and pillage. And rape and pillage occurs not just in fighting the war, but it occurs in the war's finances. People rape and pillage and become very wealthy. Now, look at all the money that was made off creating these planes of $500 million, of which we got 32 grand back on a trade-in. Jesus, I did better with my 3/4-ton pickup truck, percentage-wise, when I got my new 1/2-ton pickup truck, and yet people call car dealers thieves. You do way better at the car dealer than you do Afghanistan. People need to understand the Afghan war's over now, so, all that money is down the old tubes, and, what else would we have actually used it for? Come on. Defense Department, they need more money. You can't cut their budget because they do good deals like this on your behalf. My sarcasm's at a peak today, ain't it, Alex? I hope people are getting it. I hope that people are following it, because there are a lot of knuckleheads out there, and lemmings that I learned that when I was governor. You're not allowed to say a joke unless you preface it with "that was a joke, joke, joke" 3 times. Then people understand that you were joking. So I should say sarcasm. Can we do that like on the thing? Have a thing, sarcasm. When I do that, so that people, I used to do that on my radio show. We had a thing that we would do, because they would censure whenever they caught a politician doing something awful. The biggest thing that they could face, they would be censured. And so we did censured, and like this censured in an echo chamber, because what a price to pay, to be censured. Regular people go to jail. Politicians get censured. Censured's much worse, trust me. But although I got to tell you, Alex, I've never been censured.
Well, we won't start here anytime soon.
All right, continue on.
Here's another great case where a government lost track of cash. The Bush administration sent billions of dollars in cash withdrawn from Iraqi government accounts held in the U.S., hoping the funds would provide a quick financial infusion for Iraq's new government and the country's battered economy. $12 to $14 billion was sent to Iraq in an airlift. An additional $5 billion was sent by electronic transfer, so reports the New York Times. But exactly what happened to that money after it arrived in Baghdad has become one of the many unanswered questions from the chaotic days of the American occupation, when billions were flowing into the country from the United States. The Special Inspector General on the case, Stuart Bowen Jr., who was appointed by Bush, could not account for the billions until he finally had a breakthrough, discovering that $1.2 billion to $1.6 billion had been stolen and moved to a bunker in rural Lebanon for safekeeping. Bowen concludes that most of the money was probably used by the Iraqi government in some way, but he was not able to finish the case as his office was closed down last year. Billions in cash missing, money doesn't grow from trees, but it seems like the government thinks so, right, Governor?
Well, these are the benefits of your war machine. These are the benefits that I've been harping about of why our country, in its continual war after war, this is a great example. Now, all these billions, can you imagine how many times we could pay for Obamacare with just a fraction of this money? Everyone here could have health care. Everyone here, it could be a positive impact on our nation. We could use it, but instead it got moved to a bunker. What, did we send cash? What is these pallets full of money that just got delivered out of the air?
In an airlift.
In an airlift, and then it was put into a rural Lebanon for safekeeping and moved into a bunker. You know what? I wonder who's got the key to the bunker, Bush and Cheney? Who's in charge of having the key to the bunker where all this billions of cash is being kept? I'd like to know that. Any way we can find out who's got access to this bunker? Jesus. No, this is another example, people, of your country going to war and using your money to do it, and then telling you they can't tell you what they do because of national security. They can spend your money, they can lose your money, they can have your money be robbed from you, but you're not allowed to know about any of the things they use it for because of, quote, national security. That's why that argument is bogus, people. They have no right to keep secrets from us because of national security, because it's running on our money, and we have every right to know when 1.2 to 1.6 billion have been stolen. Stolen. And we're worried about voter fraud when money like this is being stolen? and we don't even get to find out what happened to it because we eliminate the office? How convenient is that? Steal the money and then eliminate any investigative office so no one will ever know. People enjoy those thieving Democrats and Republicans. Aren't they doing a wonderful job for you during this election cycle? Continue on, Alex.
Well, ISIS hysteria has hit stateside. A new GOP ad claims there's an ISIS plot to attack the U.S. via, quote, Arizona's backyard. The National Republican Congressional Committee's spot attacks Arizona Democratic Congresswoman Ann Kirkpatrick, who voted against border security legislation for leaving Arizona vulnerable. Evil forces around the world want to harm Americans every day. Their entry into our country through Arizona's backyard, the ad states. This despite the fact that Homeland Security Secretary Jay Johnson said there is no evidence suggesting ISIS is planning an attack at our southern border.
Well, Alex, I take it a step deeper than this. They're telling us in this ad that evil forces around the world want to harm Americans every day. What have we done to incur the wrath of these evil forces? How come that question's never asked or answered? These people just don't hate us for no reason. There's got to be a reason. People don't hate for no reason. There has to be a reason for hatred. I'd like to know what the reason. Could it be that we occupy their countries and we dictate to them policy and what'll happen in their countries, and they're truly not self-governing in any way, shape, or form without United States influence through our military and us being there? Do you think that might play a little bit of a role in why this evil wants to get us? Or are we supposed to believe George Bush and say they're jealous of our freedoms? That these evil people throughout the world pay so much attention to what goes on in the United States that they're jealous of our freedoms here. Why isn't that question ever asked and answered? Why do they hate us? What have we done? Obviously, we've done something more than just exist for a reason that they hate us. Do you think that's a fair question to ask, Alex?
Yeah, I do, absolutely.
I do too.
Where does it all stem from?
Yeah, where does it stem from? Why should we be in fear of ISIS attacking us? Why does ISIS want to attack us? What have we done to make them want to attack us? Obviously, we've done something. You know, are they planning on attacking Norway? Anybody?
Not that I've heard.
Anyone hear any precautions happening in Norway or Iceland or any of these other places, Sweden or anywhere up there, because of, why isn't ISIS got them in the crosshairs? Well, obviously because they're not doing something that we are. You know, I know we'll get to this later on an Off the Grid show, but I'm standing with Ron Paul. You can call me an isolationist now. I'll wear it with pride. It's time we start taking care of our country and putting the United States first, and the rest of these countries fall in line after the USA being first. Anyway, continue on, Alex.
All right, well, there's a new amendment has been proposed for Colorado's upcoming midterm election. Amendment 67 proposes to outlaw all abortions in the state of Colorado, even in cases of rape or incest. It also demands to ban some of the most common forms of birth control, including the pill and IUDs. It would make it illegal for a pregnant woman with cancer to choose treatment that could save her life. And perhaps most shockingly, any birth that isn't a live birth, i.e. miscarriages and stillbirths, could be deemed suspicious deaths and would be investigated by police. The group behind the movement is Personhood USA. A quick look at their website offers this description of them. Personhood USA desires to glorify Jesus Christ in a way that creates a culture of life so that all innocent human lives are protected by love and by law. While Colorado may be seen as a progressive state since it legalized marijuana, it seems to be taking some steps backwards if this comes into play, right, Governor?
Well, first of all, let's see if this passes, Alex. This is the most blatant injection of religion into politics that I've seen in a long time. I don't think it's going to pass in Colorado. I might be wrong. I hope I'm wrong. I sure hope that Colorado has enough common sense that they're going to vote this crap down. This is ridiculous. As you said, for a state that's so progressive, if this passes, it'll be a major step backwards in that state. Man, oh man.
Well, let's keep talking about church and state. The next story may make your blood boil. A recent study by the Pew Research Forum's Religion and Public Life Project found that almost 3/4 of the American public, 72%, believes that religion's influence is waning in public life, and that many Americans believe this trend to be a bad thing. Seems like the public wants religion to play a greater role in politics. Thoughts, Governor?
Well, no, they're just scared that somehow people that don't have religion misbehave, and that's not true. Not true at all. Some of the most brilliant people that have been in this world are atheists. And so to me, that's just people being fed the old fear pill. You know, that somehow if religion disintegrates, that we're all going to become barbaric and we're all going to become, whatever, with no rules or anything like that. You don't need religion to treat your fellow man with respect. I don't need it. I'm not involved in religion in any way, shape, or form. And I still try to do my utmost best to treat my fellow man with dignity and respect. If you follow the golden rule, treat others as you would want to be treated, then why do you need religion to follow that? And so I just think that this is a trend that is perpetrated because somehow people think if you're not religious that you're barbaric and you have no values, which is total hogwash.
Well, here's some evidence of vigilance among the American public. A Wells Fargo worker decided to ask his CEO for a raise and wanted everyone at the company to know about it. So he emailed the CEO and CC'd hundreds of thousands of his coworkers. Now the whole world knows about it. The employee, Tyrell Oates, asked Wells Fargo chief John Stumpf to take a stance on income inequality by offering all 300,000 employees a $10,000 raise. Oates estimates that an across-the-board pay raise would cost the bank $3 billion, just a small fraction of what Wells Fargo pulls in annually. In the email, a copy of which was obtained by CNN Money, he pointed out that in the second quarter alone, the bank had earned $5.7 billion. Pretty gutsy of him, right, Governor?
Oh, it's gutsy, but I got news for you, Tyrell Oates. I hope your unemployment's good, because I got a feeling somehow within the next year they're going to eliminate your position and you're going to be in the unemployment line. But I tip my hat to you, Tyrell Oates. That took some courage, absolutely it did. And it goes on to something I believe in. Now, I've talked about it before. I've said that instead of a minimum wage, we need a maximum wage. And I've determined that maximum wage should be $36 million a year. No one should be able to make over $36 million a year. That's $3 million a month. If you can't survive on $3 million a month, then something is grossly wrong with you. Absolutely. Now, before everybody throws their hands in the air and says, oh, there's Jesse Ventura with some sort of communist thing. Nope, I'm not new with this. I'm not new at all with it. Take a look at all your pro sports teams. They all have what? Whether it's football, baseball, basketball, hockey, they have salary caps. In other words, there's caps. The players can only make so much. Well, if the players can only make so much, shouldn't the owners be able to make so much too? And shouldn't CEOs be able to make only so much also? So you have salary caps have been in play. They're in play in every sports entertainment industry out there, pro football, pro basketball, pro hockey, pro baseball. They all have salary caps. It's time to start putting CEO salary caps out there. $36 million a year, there's the cap. If you can't live off that, something's wrong with you. And if you can't live off that, here's the sarcasm, then I support the death penalty. For you. Alex, could you live off $3 million a month?
Yeah, I've lived off a lot less than that each month.
Well, I mean, I think that's reasonable, right? $3 million a month?
Yeah. How'd you come to that, to $3 million a month?
I don't know. I just thought $36 million a year. That breaks down to $3 million a month. 12 months out of the year, $3 million a month. I just found that to be a fair number.
Yeah.
Because you hear of people making $25 million a year today. Well, let's put a cap, though. They have salary cap in all sports, $36 million. And then what you do with the rest of the money, it either goes back to the corporation or you got to donate it to a real charity, not one that you form with yourself, the head of it. No loopholes on the deal. $36 million, it can be your total income. If nobody can survive on that, something's wrong with them. And that would help bridge that gap, don't you think, between the worker and the boss?
Absolutely.
There we go. We'll bridge the gap. Oh, Jesse, you communist, you. Well, I'm in good company then, because pro football, pro basketball, pro baseball, and pro hockey are also communist, if I am too then. All right, that's it for this week's headlines. Now let's move on to your questions and comments in this edition of Ask Jesse. Alex, what do my vigilant listeners want to know?
All right, first from Salvatore in Ontario, Canada. Are we as humans living the right way? Ebola and ISIS are plaguing the world. Wouldn't it just take a small terrorist group to weaponize the disease? The USA always seems to have a foot in their mouths as of late. There is more to what an average person like me can find out through the news. I feel as if everything in all governments is a con, criminals in control. Makes it hard to live if we always have to worry about surviving.
Well, Salvador, I think you're right on with a lot of your thinking right there. They want to distract you. They want to keep you. Mainstream media is a part of it. They want you to keep paying attention to things that don't really affect you, like ISIS. And they're trying to make you think that ISIS is going to be some massive thing that's going to happen. I think it's all part of a way to lock down the world. Don't be surprised if there's some attacks that happen and something happens in Canada and the United States in the near future, which our government will immediately blame on ISIS, and then they will lock you down and they will take away your freedoms, and you'll happily give them up because you'll say, oh, government, make me safe. I don't care if you lock me in a cell as long as I'm safe and can survive. And that's what they're banking on. They're banking on situations like that. You saw an example of it at the Boston Marathon, where martial law was implemented there in a test run. And they've been practicing. It's going on out there right now. The Twin Cities of Minneapolis, St. Paul had a big thing with black helicopters flying around a couple months ago. It was national security. They couldn't tell us why, even though we pay for it, and we're inconvenienced by the noise of it all. You know, all of this stuff is done to keep you scared and to keep you occupied so that the Democrats and Republicans, the true criminals of the world, can get away with what they do.
All right, well, from Brad in Iowa, Jesse, I am so sick of all of the party politics that is going on in this country. Since you were a serviceman and governor, you've seen both sides of war. My question is about ISIS. Can an organization with such hate and disregard for human life really be defeated? Can we do it without boots on the ground? It seems to me they are moving through the Middle East quickly, and if something is not done soon and in a big way, they may gain control of the majority of the Middle East. Ever vigilant, Brad.
Well, you know, let's remember now, this is all part of religion, because ISIS is part of a religion, and they're the throwback of Islam, and they're practicing a portion of Islam that many Islamists disagree with and say that they're crazy nuts. We've heard that too. But what's going to happen then if ISIS gets control over there? What are we going to believe then? They're going to tell us he's going to become Adolf Hitler and he's going to go across the whole world conquering all the way? Let's remember something. All the weapons they had were created by us. So clearly we have weapons beyond the ones we've given them. It's time for the countries over there to do their own fighting, in my opinion. This is a regional thing. Let them take care of it regionally, and it doesn't require us to stick our big nose in it. And because the more we stick our nose in, the bigger ISIS grows. Because they believe it's the Christians against the Muslims. And they believe that we Christians, the Christians of the U.S., are invading their Muslim lands and dictating to the Muslims how it's going to be. And they do have some history on their side. It was called the Crusades. So they're not without forewarning. It's happened before. So you can see, maybe we ought to look at it from their side for a change. What is it they see that comes out of the West? They see us coming in there, putting up puppet governments, invading their countries, overthrowing their governments, and occupying them. Well, if we didn't behave that way, there wouldn't be an ISIS. And ask the bigger question. If Saddam Hussein was still in power today, would there be ISIS? I think not. Brad?
All right, from Michael in Indiana. Does the middle class stand a chance? I feel lower than welfare suckers and the illegal aliens. Make more money than I have ever and still can't get ahead.
Well, first of all, Michael from Indiana, stop throwing illegal aliens and welfare suckers out. You know, someday there'll be a time in your family someone's going to need help, and they're going to need welfare to get it. It's a safety net. Now, has it been abused? Probably. Are there people that abuse it? Probably. But corporate welfare is 100 times larger than social welfare. And as far as illegal aliens go, I think we were all illegal aliens when we arrived here, didn't we? You know, when Columbus discovered this land for the Anglo-Saxon European while he was looking to find a new way to India to avoid the Middle East, we all came here and we were all illegal. So I'm offended when you use welfare suckers and illegal aliens. You know, you're making more money and still can't get ahead. Well, then blame the CEOs and blame corporate America and the fascism that's going on, because they're trying to destroy the middle class. And every time they destroy a union, that helps destroy the middle class, because unions created the middle class. So remember that, Michael.
All right, this is going to be our last one for time. So from Terry in Arkansas, I'm a 28-year-old retired military female. I served in the U.S. Marine Corps for 6.5 years and the Army for 21.5. How would you feel about the United States pulling all active duty military people back to CONUS and put them on the borders instead of U.S. Border Patrol? Deactivate the U.S. Border Patrol and TSA and let the U.S. military protect us as they are supposed to.
Well, that's nice sounding, and they certainly could do it, and I'm all for pulling back. But do we really want to? Wow. I mean, that's making us East Berlin, Terry. Do we really want to be East Berlin? Do we really want the tanks at Checkpoint Charlie? Aren't we supposed to represent home of the brave, land of the free? And if we put the military at our borders, that kind of puts us in a big prison, doesn't it? Both from one side and the other. See, I take the opposite viewpoint, Terry. I'm for open borders. I'm for being able to travel the earth. We're all human beings of this planet. And why do we need paperwork to go somewhere? I mean, we're at polar opposites there, but I understand your concern. And I understand I'm all for pulling the military back. I'm all for shutting down these bases throughout the world. I stand with you on that. And we can find things for the U.S. military to do, and certainly in support of the Border Patrol, I guess it would help, and maybe we could try it. But visually, though, man, oh man, just having the entire U.S., guarding the border. And you know what I get a kick out of is you never hear people say anything about the Canadian border, do you? Is that because it's white people? Is there a little bit of racism being thrown in this border stuff? I tend to think so. Because if you recall, if you believe 9/11, the hijackers came in through Canada, not Mexico, and yet all you hear about is stopping the people from the Mexican border. Not a word about the Canadian border. So, we need to, get the racist stuff straight there too, because I think it rears its head in a certain way. Anyway, though, I'm for pulling back our military, no doubt about it, but do I want to turn us into East Berlin? That's a second thing I got to think about real hard on. Okay, very good. I know I got kind of carried away. We didn't get to all of them, but I do want to say this. Keep sending your questions and comments to Aura TV, and maybe I'll answer your questions on the air on We the People Are Off the Grid. In just a few minutes, Alex Jones will join me. But first, my vigilant listeners and sports fans alike, I want to talk to you about DraftKings. Have you checked out DraftKings.com? DraftKings is the one-week fantasy football site founded by sports fans for sports fans. There are no season-long commitments, so play whenever you want. Got an injured player? No problem. It's like a new season every week, so you're never stuck with the same players. Just pick 9 starters, stay under the salary cap. Aha! Salary cap, even used in fantasy football. And you could be on your way to instant cash. Hurry and get a free entry into the $100,000 fantasy football contest this weekend. First place takes home $10,000. Head to DraftKings.com now, enter the code BODY, and play for free. DraftKings.com. Bigger events, bigger winnings, bigger millionaires. All right, now it's time for the interview of the hour. Alex Jones is on the line. He hosts the Alex Jones Show on more than 70 AM, FM, and shortwave radio stations. He also runs the websites Infowars.com and PrisonPlanet.tv. and his YouTube channel has over 430 million views. Please welcome the one and only Alex Jones to the We the People podcast. Hi, Alex. How you doing today?
Jesse, it's exciting to be here. Thanks for having me, Governor.
No problem. Alex, first question. How the hell did you get into all of this?
That's a good question. I was a pro Second Amendment right to self-defense guy like you, pretty much a libertarian, and they were trying to pass bills that would even ban junior shooting sports at the YMCA and things that I'd been involved in, and that would ban sons and daughters hunting with their parents.
And when you say
things like that.
Wait, Alex, let me interject. When you say they would ban, whom are we talking about here? The government, local, statewide, or federal?
Yes. I got involved when the state of Texas, about 25 years ago, had a raft of legislation to heavily restrict the Second Amendment. That's when I got politically active. And then the rabbit hole just got deeper and deeper from there.
And you went on to this empire that you built today where you because I mean it's remarkable what you've created, Alex. You've created your own empire here of communication, and it's a great thing, and you're to be commended for it.
There's a will, there's the way. Just like you ran for governor, you ran for mayor first, you had a talk show, you had a desire to be politically involved because of things that you wanted to promote and passion you had, and look what it turned into with international TV shows and everything else and all the success you've had, Governor. I mean, it shows the power of the individual taking action. But, yes, I started out on Access Television while I was in college, and the show was somewhat popular. I would go out and do investigative pieces, and then it got picked up on local radio, and then that got good ratings. So I got syndicated through a small syndicator out of Minnesota, and here I am 18 years after syndication, reaching about 3 million people a day. So it's amazing. But look, you were successful in everything you did, but from a grassroots perspective, and now you're successful on the internet. I mean, it's a true equalizer that you can go out on the internet and have millions of viewers. I can go out on the internet and have millions of viewers. They could censor your true TV show on FEMA camps, but that show on YouTube and on BitTorrent has millions and millions of views. So it just shows the desire of free will and that free market out there is really having a huge effect. But it's funny you bring that up because just today there's a big report out from WorldNet Daily how libertarian and alternative media websites are internally on their own servers exploding in the ratings. But suddenly Alexa, owned by Amazon, that also owns the Washington Post, they have been turning down our ratings, trying to affect advertisers. And we can see clearly because on the back end, we're members of it, so we can go in and see their internal numbers that show we're exploding, but the numbers they're putting out publicly show that we're imploding. It's incredible to see how the fix is in to try to make it look like that the new media isn't really the dominant media. So there's a lot of manipulation going on, Governor.
Well, and I'm sure there is. You know, they're fighting for their lives, mainstream media is today. Their ratings are down. The new millennium young people are not tuning in. I mean, I found it amazing, Alex, when I saw that the average viewer of Fox News, the average age is like 72.
Yes.
And if you look at the ads on Fox News, because that's the way to judge who's watching something, look at the ads. And I noticed, I don't watch Fox News often, but I did it one time because I wanted to follow up and look at the ads. And all the ads were for elderly. I mean, they were for the moving chairs, you know, that you buy, the thing that you drive around when you're too old to be able to walk anymore. All the ads dealt with people that were probably 70 years old or older, and that convinced me that those statistics were correct on Fox News.
Well, that's right.
That they're obviously geared to old people because their ads indicate who's watching the program. Because isn't that true, Alex? If you want to know who's watching something, look at who the advertisers are.
Well, that's right. And the average age to die is 76. So if their average viewer is 71, 72, and I saw that number just a few weeks ago, Fox admitted that. Nothing against old people. You know, we'll all be there one day at that age. But it does show their demographic is literally dying right now, and the entire mainstream media is dying. The problem is now they're resorting, as you just said, to every dirty trick. In fact, I was just talking to my reporters before I did your show, And I said, what headline should we give this when we write about it? And I said, I don't know, I'll get back to you later. But I think I'm going to steal your term. Dinosaur media fighting for its life fixes ratings. And how many times has CNN, MSNBC, and others been caught with Nielsen, mainstream news, fixing their ratings in the last few years to make it look like they have viewers? So you're right, Governor. They're doing this out of total desperation. Because, listen, here's the thing. I don't sell advertisers off of Alexa ratings or off of Arbitron or off of Nielsen. My advertisers all come to me because of results. So I don't go subscribe. We do subscribe to Alexa because it's so cheap to look at it. But we don't use those numbers to sell. We have our own analytics server numbers, and so it doesn't matter. We have so many advertisers, Jesse, trying to kick down our doors, we can't even have time to deal with them all. I mean, you asked how I built this empire. We have a big audience. And so it's a joke. They're announcing I've been knocked out. They're announcing literally I have no viewers or listeners when we've got the biggest listenership we've ever had exponentially. But it's not just me. It's every major alternative site, right-wing, left-wing, libertarian. It doesn't matter. If it's not establishment, the Washington Post, CNN, MSNBC, Fox News, all of them starting 2 weeks ago shoot straight up, and then we all shoot straight down. I mean, Governor, in the middle of this Ebola scare, I've got the biggest audience we've ever had. I can see them in live time on the podcast numbers, on the live stream numbers, on the iHeartRadio numbers. We now know in live time the biggest audience we've ever had. It makes me think of a quote by Mark Twain: rumors of my death have been greatly exaggerated.
And you know what, though? I don't think we should fear what they're doing, because obviously they're getting very desperate, Alex, when they're manipulating like that. They're pulling out all the stops. They're doing everything they can. And the only time we need to worry is when the government starts to step in on the internet and starts trying to control it, and trying to control you and trying to control me. So as long as that's not happening, I'm not worried about what those others are doing, because they're losing the young people anyway. The young people are too smart for them already. The young people have been lied to by them far, far too often. They've seen how they've manipulated, and they don't want anything to do with it. The key we got to do, though, Alex, is get these young people to start voting and start doing their civic duty, because the statistics on them are horrible.
Well, that's right. They're so through with the system, they don't even vote. They're not even tuned into it. I mean, I talk to young folks all the time on air and in the street, and they go, yeah, tell me something I don't know, Alex, but what am I going to do? Well, if they just lay there, we know it's only going to get worse. What do you recommend they do, Governor? You've been successful as the underdog winning.
What you do is they have to become vigilant. They have to become what our forefathers required us to be for this republic to work. And that is vigilant citizens, which means it is your duty to take part in voting. It's your duty to vote. When I campaigned for governor, they thought I was crazy because I went to a lot of college campuses and I talked to them and I explained to the young people, I said, they're going to ignore you until you start voting. When you become a voting bloc, they will then pay attention to you, because then you'll get them elected. If you don't do nothing to get them elected, they could care less about you.
That's right.
Well, lo and behold, how did Jesse win governorship? Well, Alex, they expected a 50% voter turnout in '98. It's not a presidential when we elect our governor in Minnesota. 60% came out, 10% more than they predicted, and I was polling 27%. I went to 37%. Those 10% that they didn't predict would come out were the people that actually put me over the top and made me the governor, and caught them with their pants down because they didn't expect them to vote. So if young people want to disrupt the system, and if they want to be revolutionary, the way to do it is by voting, because that's the one way it's never been done with young people before. So if they get active and get involved in it, and you and I can instill in them the importance of it, and then I take it the step further, and for God's sake, quit electing Democrats and Republicans. There are more choices than them, and we need to get more choices. We need to break up these gangs. Anyway, Alex, let's move to one of your favorite things, and that's Ebola. Give me your take on what's going on with the Ebola situation.
Well, I don't think overall this is going to turn into a pandemic here. In Africa, the UN says it could be as many as 1.4 million people that are going to get it. What I do know is they have been allowing people to fly in from West Africa when the default position, like England and France have done, is don't let them. They brought in healthcare workers before we're supposed to be treated on Navy ships. That was always the default. Now they're bringing them in. Now people are getting Ebola in Spain and other areas from people they brought in. So I think, in a way, they're letting it begin to spread so they can try to come out with a vaccine. They say it's going to be ready by December or January that Bill and Melinda Gates are involved in with Monsanto to try to give us some deadly vaccine. I mean, I really think that's what's behind it. I don't think domestically the Ebola situation is truly that big of a deal, unless you're this nurse that's got it or the poor guy that died in Dallas last week. But I do think the hysteria and the hype from it is going to be a really, really big problem.
Well, Alex, let's put it into perspective like I did on my show. Okay, we've had one person in the United States now, that Mr. Duncan, who came back to Texas, actually die from Ebola in the United States. Well, last month alone, there were 10,000 people killed by drunk drivers.
Yep.
So I would say we have a drunk driving epidemic than the Ebola situation. Drunk driving is way
I think what
worse
people
here.
are scared of, I mean, I agree with you, but what people are scared of is the potentiality, the potential that 5 people get it, 10 get it, 20 get it, 100 get it, 1,000 get it, 10,000 get it, 1 million get it, 5 million get it, 20 million get it, because if it ever mutates and goes airborne, Katie bar the door, it could kill billions. But I don't think this go-around, that's what we're facing, but I do think long-term, we've got a population of 7.5 billion people. What happens in nature whenever a population gets really huge?
It takes care of itself, usually.
Yeah, and I'm not for exterminating people. I'm not a eugenicist. I've been on your TV show about that.
Yeah.
But the globalists, have said that they are all for airborne Ebola. So I am concerned down the road they could release it or allow it to spread. What do you think?
Well, first of all, though, Ebola can't spread airborne. How are they going to get it to spread airborne? It has to. The only way it can spread is through bodily fluids. It's like AIDS.
No, I know, but I'm saying, what if it goes airborne?
Well, it can't right now, unless somebody creates it to make it to where it can. But Ebola right now cannot be spread airborne. It's like AIDS. I never had any fear of catching AIDS because I'm not sexually promiscuous or anything like that to where I would get it. And the only way I could ever contract it would be through a blood transfusion of some sort. That would be the only way I'd get it. Ebola's the same way. You can't just get it from it being airborne or somebody sneezing. You have to come in direct contact with it, and it has to be from bodily fluids.
No, I totally agree with you that currently it is. I just interviewed the virologists and others, medical doctors on air, and they're saying the concern is before the biggest Ebola scares would be 15, 20, 30 people getting it in Africa.
And no, what I find interesting, though, Alex, is that the rest of the world is sending doctors to Africa, and yet we sent the 82nd Airborne there?
Well, that's another way to spread it. So that's what I'm getting at. The doctors are worried that when it gets into a bigger population, that's where it mutates, is inside the body. When the virus starts getting defeated, it starts mutating to try to defeat the body, and that's why they think it may start to go airborne. They think it may already be more hardy, not truly airborne, but can survive in spit and saliva. Why is it spreading so much worse this time is my point.
But my point, Alex, why are we sending the military, the 82nd Airborne, to Africa? They have nothing to do with medical.
I agree with you, like when you were on my show last week, because that's the answer to everything. Send the military.
Well, no, I've heard, here's what I heard the reason is because China's taking a big interest in Africa right now, and so we want to send our military over there to get control.
Well, that's completely true. In my film, The Obama Deception, that's been seen 40 million times online for free that you're in, by the way, you can see me in myself and Webster Tarpley on the video predict that they would use different crises for AFRICOM to invade Africa to kick the Chinese out. And you're absolutely right. This is an invasion of Africa covered up as an Ebola response.
Yeah, because other countries are sending doctors there and medical personnel. And I was just astounded when I found out the 82nd Airborne is going there, the paratroopers. What do they have to do with medical? Nothing. They wage war. They're the top Army guys, the airborne guys. They're the guys that parachute. I went through jump school with them. They would have nothing to do with Ebola. I'm trying to figure out why they would send the 82nd Airborne to Africa.
That's it. That is exactly, as soon as you said it, absolutely concurred with you because it's clear that's what's going on. They're setting up permanent bases in a whole bunch of these countries. And also when they put al-Qaeda, known as ISIS, into Libya 4 years ago, they're now using that as an excuse to send troops in to fight the very group that they put in to begin with. And now today it's being reported by RT, Turkish airstrike hits Kurds, not ISIS. Turkey wants ISIS to conquer Syria. Turkey's been behind with NATO, ISIS, since the beginning. And then when it embarrassed Obama and others that our government's behind ISIS, they started these fake bombing raids against them, which are a complete and total cover. I mean, this is just more evidence showing that 9/11 was staged.
Well, the thing that I want to know, Alex, is when now they've convinced the American people to go to war against ISIS. The latest polls show that over half Americans think that we need to go over there. So their propaganda campaign of spreading fear to every American that somebody from ISIS is going to show up on their doorstep and kill them and behead them is obviously worked, because in a very short time, the average public now wants to go to war again. When are the people of this country going to wake up and realize that these wars are nothing but a racket?
Well, that's what Smedley Butler, as you know, said, and you're right, Jesse. Look, what's happening with ISIS right now is the same thing happened back in the first Gulf War when they told Saddam Hussein, yeah, go ahead and invade Kuwait. Our government had funded him to attack Iran. Our government had given him the nerve gas that he used against the Kurds. I'm not lionizing Saddam Hussein, but the point is our government literally set him up to do what he did and then pulled the rug out from under him. And then now we are 24 years later. Millions of Iraqis are dead. It is a tragedy. And look, ISIS are a bunch of despicable, radical people chopping innocent folks' heads off. So I certainly can get why the American people get conned into supporting a war. What they have to know is al-Qaeda, ISIS, all these different groups, Khorasan, are all literally manufactured by the West. Major books have been written on it. British intelligence created them back over 100 years ago. The Germans took control of them in World War II when your dad was fighting them in North Africa with your mom, who was a nurse over there. And then the U.S. got the keys to radical Islam after World War II and has been radicalizing them the entire time, using religion as a way to create wars and destabilize the planet. So it's clearly just a total setup so that the military-industrial complex that Eisenhower warned us of has just a new place to drop a bunch of bombs and, have those new fighters that cost $165 million apiece, flying around dropping bombs on al-Qaeda.
Yeah, I mean, because my view is this, okay, simplified. All right, we're going to go over there. It's inevitable. We're going to go over there. We're going to wipe out ISIS. We're going to go to war with them and battle them. And as soon as we're done with them, something else will rear its head within a year. There'll be another threat over there that we'll then have to deal with next. I mean, when you got Panetta out there now telling us this is going to last 30 years, no, it doesn't have to if we'd pull out. I stand with Rand Paul on that. It's time to get out of there. Pull out of the Middle East, shut down our embassies, let's get the hell out of there. I love to use...
It's like what you said with the Marine Corps barracks that got bombed. Reagan just pulled us out of there. Why should we be in the middle of a civil war in Lebanon or something? That's not cutting and running. I mean, if two pit bulls are killing each other in the street, I'm not going to go jump in the middle of them.
Well, and the point is that how does it affect us? It doesn't. It only affects the corporations that are over there that have to deal with it. Well, if corporations feel threatened over there, then let them hire Blackwater. Let them hire the private security people to protect them. It should not be
Let them pay for it.
Yeah, it should not be the responsibility of the United States citizens and the U.S. military to be over there protecting corporate interests that are going on in the Middle East.
But our government, as an excuse, literally 4 years ago began funding al-Qaeda in Iraq, al-Qaeda in Benghazi in Libya, al-Qaeda in Egypt, al-Qaeda in Tunisia, to try to overthrow those governments. Our government gave them the missiles. Our government armed ISIS just publicly, Jesse, and I don't know how they're getting away with it other than the general public is geopolitically ignorant.
That you hit the nail on the head. They are politically ignorant. People believe what mainstream media tells them, and they believe what they're being told, and then they're showing these horrible videos of the beheadings. You know what my response was to the beheadings, Alex?
What was it?
I thought, what's the difference between beheading someone or sticking them in a toaster or injecting them with a drug that don't work?
I remember you said that, yeah.
I mean, the point of the matter is, and the Saudis behead people all the time. It's part of their culture over there.
Well, that's where Al-Qaeda comes from, is Saudi Arabia.
Well,
that's where ISIS comes from, is our ally, Saudi Arabia. I mean, what a joke. If you get caught being an atheist or a Christian or anything other than radical Islam, they put you in prison or chop your head off.
Yeah.
I mean, literally, why is our so-called liberal government in bed with Saudi Arabia when they chop your head off?
Yeah, exactly. I mean, that's the normal mode of killing someone over there, is chop your head off. Although, like I said, what's the difference between that or what we do here? We stick them in the toaster.
Actually, it's a lot more moral because it only hurts for 30 seconds if they're cutting it off, or a few seconds if they chop it off. Stick somebody in a toaster, that might take 5 minutes. Or what about lethal injection? It takes them hours to do that.
Well, and then they don't even get it right. The guy lives till the next day.
Oh, man.
Look at those latest cases where they've injected the guy and it hasn't worked. And my point there is, if we're going to be a society that's moving forward, the death penalty is not acceptable anywhere. Whether you're beheading people or sticking them in toasters and electrocuting them or whatever method you choose to use, my position, Jesse Ventura's personal position, is the death penalty's wrong. And we need to stop it. We need to stop it throughout the entire world. But we can start by doing it here in the United States.
Sure.
Enough of this death penalty
crap. Well, my argument
crap.
is this. I used to be for the death penalty when I was more ignorant. But we see all these cases where they know the person's innocent, and they shut them up and withhold the evidence. And then look at North Korea. I'm against them having the death penalty there. I was against the death penalty in Nazi Germany. Why do we trust any government to carry this out? I mean, I get villagers 1,000 years ago somewhere. If half the village sees some man rape and kill a kid, and they know they did it, the village would just kill them on the spot. That's justice. I mean, you can't trust the government that has the IRS and all these other persecuting groups to be killing people, because they've shown they will set you up. They will try to put you under the jail. They will try to stick you in a toaster.
Oh, yeah, very much so. I'm reading a great book right now that deals with that very fact of being set up by the government. Have you read Abraham Bolden's book?
No, I haven't. Tell me about it.
Well, he was the first African-American Secret Service agent assigned to President Kennedy. Kennedy handpicked him.
Oh, yeah, he's the one that warned him in Chicago. I didn't mean to read that book. What's the name?
Reverberation from Dealey Plaza or something like that. I forget the exact name of it. But it's Abraham Bolden. It's a great book. And that's what they did to him. He questioned what happened of the Secret Service. He said they left Kennedy vulnerable. They violated Secret Service codes. They were drinking. They were doing all this womanizing. He saw it when he was on the detail. And, of course, they then removed him from the detail and had him up in Chicago when Kennedy was killed. And then they trumped up charges. I'm at the point now where they totally set him up, and they're sending him to prison, because he was going to expose the Secret Service and the horrible job they did protecting our president. And it's a great story because he was Kennedy handpicked him. He was standing by a lavatory.
That's right.
They gave him the worst job he could get, a lavatory that Kennedy might use, and all of a sudden here came the president to use it, and the president stopped and looked at him and said, "What's your name?" He said, "Abraham Bolden." He said, "Are you one of Mayor Daley's guys, or are you Secret Service?" Bolden said, "I'm Secret Service, sir." He said, "Has there ever been a black Secret Service man in the president's detail?" And Bolden said, "I don't think so, sir." And Kennedy looked him right in the eye and said, "How would you like to be the first one?" And he accepted.
Wow.
And it's a great story. I mean, and like Abraham Bolden said, Jack Kennedy looked me in the eye and offered me the ability to protect his life. And he said that had been done to no black man. Like he said, they can't take that away from me. He said, I am the Jackie Robinson of the Secret Service.
No, I'm very familiar with his story. It's riveting and documents so much of it. But listen, Jesse, they're never going to admit that we're right, even though 90+% in national polls, on average, believe that more than one shooter was there and there's a conspiracy.
Oh,
even
no.
though Congress had hearings.
I understand that, Alex. I understand that. They can't admit it. They can't admit they got the crime of the century wrong, so they're never going to admit it.
Exactly, but throwing this in, it doesn't matter because the dinosaur media is not dominant anymore.
Yep.
And we, the people, do know the truth, and we now know about whistleblowers, and we now pretty much know what happened, and we know that you're right and Jim Mars are right, and it doesn't matter how many Hollywood stars they get to line up to prop up the official story. Humpty Dumpty has fallen off the wall, and it's over. And so that's the good news. But you mentioned the paradox at the start of this interview, and I'd like to briefly speak to that. You've got mainly the older folks. They're either awake or they're not awake. They decided their worldview. They're either going to watch Fox News or they're going to read a book and try to find out the truth. The good news is most young people don't listen to mainstream news. They don't read it. They don't watch it. They don't believe it. But they're so disconnected, it seems like they don't care. We've got to get young people and other folks involved to realize that, okay, 90% of us know they killed Kennedy. We need to now speak out about this, because if that domino ever falls or 9/11 ever completely falls, that's it for all the other dominoes. That's why they fight to prop those up. So the good news is we do have a lot of people awake. The bad news is they feel disempowered and aren't involved, so they should vote. They should run for office. They should do their own podcast. They should speak up. They shouldn't just say, oh, thank you, Governor Ventura, for what you do, or thank you, Alex, for what you do. They need to get involved and be leaders in their own area, and that's how these big journeys start, is with a single step.
Well, that's what I kind of look at my role in life is now, Alex. I'm kind of viewing, because I've looked at the statistics of my show, and my show is dominantly being watched by the young people, 18 to 29 years of age. And so I feel kind of like the Pied Piper now. This has empowered me to go to these young people and to help instill in them a feeling of patriotism and a feeling that all is not lost, that they have the power, that they just need to learn how to exercise it. And the only way you do that's by getting involved, not running away, but getting involved. And so I kind of view it as it's for people like you and me. That's our lot in life now, I think, is to energize these young people and change their course, change the course. We can do it. One guy can have an impact. Look at the guy who did the movie Super Size Me on McDonald's. One guy did a documentary showing you how McDonald's produces poison, that if you eat it and that's all you eat, you will die from it. And what
it's changing the entire fast food industry.
Yep.
Decimated McDonald's bottom line.
Yep.
It shows the power of one guy.
It shows the power that one person can make a difference. And that's, Alex, what we need to instill in these 18 to 29 millennium people. They shouldn't give up. That's the start of the fight. They're young. They can fight the fight, and they need to fight the fight rather than running from it.
Well, that's my message to them. The media sells the idea that even if you're awake, you have no power, you can't affect change, it's boring, it's not fun. No, being in the arena that Teddy Roosevelt talked about is what's animating. It is the animating contest of liberty that Thomas Jefferson talked about. It's fun. It's exciting. And running away, not being involved, only means that the establishment is going to find you when you're all alone on their terms. I'd rather meet the kleptocrats, the Republicans and Democrats, the insiders, the crony capitalists. I'd rather meet them on my terms, on my turf, with my own posse, with my own crew that loves liberty and freedom, all working together through free association and free ideas to agree on freedom. And you live my life, you live your life. Leave me alone. Like you say, I'd rather face the danger of the stupid Al-Qaeda thing that's made up than have them stick their hands down my pants at the airport. That's what it's all about, is each of us making a declaration of liberty, a declaration of independence against the system, and that we're going to build a new system.
But here's the problem, Alex, and I don't know if you're aware of this, but a new poll was released, and 35% surveyed of citizens could not name a single branch of government.
Very frightening.
That's insane. What is, Alex, is it the water? Is it because they put fluoride in the water that these people don't care?
Jesse, it's mainline television. People are raised in their diapers from birth to be spectators, to not be in the arena, to not know how much fun it is to be active, to not know how much fun it is to be involved. And so 35, 40% of people pretty much don't exist. They're like sock puppets, biological androids. They repeat whatever mainstream media says. But listen, it's never been a majority that changes history. It's always been 5-10%. We've got that 5-10% that are awake. We've just got to stop complying with the system. We've got to start exposing it like you're doing here right now. And like a house of cards, the system will come down. We've just got to be there to replace it with something. And I guess that's probably a topic for a future show.
Yeah. Alex, one last thing, and then we're going to go to a thing that I do on my show that I do with all my guests. But what's this stuff about these states wanting to get out of the United States? I mean, Texas has floated it around, and now I hear Ron Paul even says that it should be an option. I disagree with that. I think you change the government, you change, you don't run away. If we can't become the 50 separate countries and call ourselves the United States.
Well, it's a very sophisticated issue, but let me answer it this way. I overall agree with you that secession would just turn into some new horrible scam and trade out one group of thugs for another group of thugs. We have to beat the thugs and beat the system and then decide what we want to do after that. But balkanizing with the bureaucracy that's already here, it would probably only get worse. What Ron Paul's speaking to is Catalonia in Spain, Scotland in the UK, Ireland and others wanting out of the EU. That makes perfect sense. The EU's totally manufactured, a total fraud, and predatory. But we do have the right to secession. I have called for a new Declaration of Independence where the states could have their own constitutional convention, pull out of the Republicans and Democrats and the fixed elections in Washington, and have the states, as a bully pulpit, have a list of demands voted on by their governors and legislatures to say, via the Declaration of Independence, that we want our old republic back, kind of like a reboot. So there's more than one way to secede. You can have a partial secession with the states basically saying, we're not going to go along with this anymore.
Well, what you're saying is basically what you're doing, Alex, is you're advocating for more states' rights. And I understand that, and
yes.
I support that many decisions can be done. I'm the first person that says get rid of the Federal Bureau of Education.
Yes.
States can, having been a governor, states can take care of their own education. They don't need the feds' involvement. That's just more bureaucracy. No, I understand the battle for states' rights, and I do support that.
But states need to exercise that. States need to get really up at it.
Exactly. Now, final quick question. Who do you hope becomes the president, Alex, in 2016?
I hope that it's somebody like Rand Paul. I don't think he's perfect, but overall, when it comes to war and the NSA, he's shown that he's a good guy. I've known him since 1996, interviewed him many times, so I know he's a good guy like his father. But that said, I don't think they would let him get in. I think they would try to assassinate him like they would do you, or they would destroy him with fake stories and fake dirt, and then they might blame libertarian ideas on the collapsing system. Part of me hopes they just put another scumbag.
Okay, so your choice, you'd prefer Rand Paul in 2016? Which is fine.
Well, I mean, unless you run.
No, well, I'm not running. No, that's fine.
That was
just a question. Anyway, now, Alex, we got to move on to a fun part, and we include you in this. It's called If I Were President, and it's time to play If I Were President with Alex Jones. Now, Alex, remember, these are quick answers, and you can be humorous with them. You have fun with it. Let's pretend that you, Alex Jones, are elected president. Give me your rapid-fire responses to these questions, and don't take this seriously, otherwise it's not fun. All right. First question, Alex Jones, you're the president. What's the first thing you do in the Oval Office?
First thing I do in the Oval Office is absolutely be blown away that I was in the Oval Office and just sit there and maybe smoke a cigar and look at the painting of George Washington.
Okay, but the problem is I've been there. It's a smoke-free building. You better get by the window, and the Secret Service won't let you do that either, so you're shit out of luck.
Well, I tell them I'm the president and get the hell out of the Oval Office.
Okay, there you go. Anyway, question number 2, Alex. Who's the first person you'd fire?
Wow, that's a really good question. I couldn't fire John Boehner. So the first person I'd fire would probably be the NSA head for violating people's rights.
There you go. Good answer. All right. Question number 3. You're the president of the United States, Alex. Who's the first person you'd want to meet? because the president gets to meet everybody, I would think, if they want to.
Well, I already met Jesse Ventura, and Marilyn Monroe's not alive anymore. The first person I'd want to meet, man, that's a really tough question. I'd probably want to meet another important world leader to have them call for peace.
See, you know what I answered?
I don't want to have a selfish answer.
You know what I answered on that? Keith Richards.
No. Oh, yeah, sure. Yeah, Keith Richards. Well, then if it's going to be a selfish one, I want to meet Kate Upton.
Okay, there you go. No, it could be selfish. Absolutely,
like
have
Bill
fun
Clinton
with it.
Would meet Sharon Stone.
Here's one that you got to have fun with. Which comedian would you pick for your first White House Correspondents' Dinner?
George Carlin.
He's dead.
I know, but now they have those holograms, so I'd have them rig it up in a hologram, some of his best jokes, and he'd be there.
Okay, George Carlin, even though he's gone. That's a great choice. All right, finally, who's the president you'd want to model yourself after?
Probably somebody like George Washington.
The only president that didn't belong to a political party. Good choice. Now, final segment, Alex. Social media questions with Alex Jones. We got some social media questions and comments from your fans. Are you ready, Alex?
Yeah, but I like the way you do an interview. I like the way you do an interview better than I do. I need to ask these questions on my show. I'm going to steal all these.
Okay, whatever. Now, this I don't even know how you say this. Just Popperum on Twitter asks, I'd like to ask Alex about brain-altering viruses and vaccines, especially with regard to the potential forced Ebola vaccine. Have you heard anything about this, Alex, a forced Ebola vaccine?
Yes, we know the globalists are totally into social control and mind control, Jesse. You've investigated that. For about 15 years, they have what they call vaccines. They're really engineered viruses that attack certain receptors in the brain. They call them anti-stress vaccines. They're already giving them to the troops, and it basically lobotomizes your higher senses and makes you become an automaton. And I'm very concerned that they may be adding these to so many of the vaccines. That's why the public is already so dumbed down. I shot a special report online called Brain-Eating Vaccines that breaks this down. So, yes, I'm very concerned.
Okay.
We know they're already doing it.
All right. Rest1 on Twitter wants to know, Alex, what should people have on hand in case an event such as Ebola should come to a town near you? Should martial law be declared?
The number one thing is I would have some storable food, water filters, and firearms and know how to use them. And I'd have a place to run to in the country if you really think Ebola's going to do that. But I'm more concerned about an economic collapse is why I've gotten a place out in the country. Plus, it's fun to go out in the country where you can just do whatever you want.
Yep, there you go. Okay, Clint, IU345 on Twitter asks, what happened with the U.S. Air Marshal that was stuck with a syringe? That story has died. What was in the syringe? I never heard about that. Do you know about that, Alex?
Yeah, I saw a blurb on it, and I don't think we know, but there's a lot of crazy people. There's stories about schizophrenics and others on buses saying they got Ebola and running around crazy. I think the hysteria over the Ebola is going to be much more dangerous than the actual kill rate.
Okay. Shannon Robinson on Twitter asks, Alex, has there been a conspiracy that you proposed or believed that later you found not to be true?
What are the conspiracies that I've proposed or believed that turned out later not to be true? I genuinely, I usually go with things that are already pretty much known, and then I can postulate, but I don't ever really go with something until I'm pretty darn sure about it. So I really can't think of many big things that I was overall wrong about. I get dates wrong and things like that, and sometimes make mistakes. But quite frankly, I can't think. I mean, the Federal Reserve's private. I've always known that before I said it was, and they admit it is now. I know fluoride causes IQ reduction. Now Harvard admits it. I mean, there are wild, wacky conspiracies out there that I've entertained just to, have a guest on, but I never actually endorse them. So I don't usually endorse something until I'm pretty darn sure about it. So no, I really can't backtrack on anything. I would if I was wrong. Jesse, can you think of anything I've been wrong about or you've been wrong about?
No, not off the top of my head. Not right now. I can't really, not anything that we've been off base on. I don't think so. Anyway, let's move on. Mike Hinton on Twitter wants to know, Alex, what do you think about Edward Snowden?
I think overall he's a hero. I think a lot of what he put out has already been known, but I think the spectacular way it all came out gave it attention, and I think that the man's a hero. He's reporting on crimes that are being committed. We've been lied to, and he should have a ticker tape parade, and kids should, hang him on their lockers, not just NFL players. I mean, that's what I think.
Very good. Let me finish off with this, Alex. Are you still a positive thinker? Do you still believe there's hope for America, even with all this stuff we've talked about?
I think there's hope because of people like you. Even if you and I agree on only about 90% of things, I know you're for real. I know you personally. I know you love liberty. And I know a lot of other people like Rand Paul and Ron Paul, but just countless men and women on the street that are hardworking, that are good people. And I think balance will come back into things when this country starts to collapse further. And I think we'll get back to what made us great again. And so I do overall have a lot of positive views, but I think it's going to be hellish before we get to that real wake-up call point. So I am an eternal optimist, but that doesn't mean that I think it's all going to be peaches and cream.
Very good. Anyway, Alex, thank you very much for joining me on my podcast. I really appreciate it today.
Jesse, I love it, and thank you for coming on my show. And everybody out there, just keep promoting liberty, because if you're listening to this transmission, you are the resistance.
There you go. All right. Many thanks to my guest, Alex Jones. Be sure to catch his radio show and check out all of his websites, Infowars.com, PrisonPlanet.com. And as for you, my listeners, as always, stay vigilant. It's your job.
This is Corolla Digital.